Hello! Welcome back for Blends Club in December 2018. My name is Tiffany Almeida with Pretty in Paper Crafts. Thank you guys so much for joining me for another amazing month of blends. These are the blends colors for this month. We have our Poppy Parade Dark and Light, Smoky Slate Dark and Light, Pool Party Dark and Light, and Shaded Spruce and Dark and Light. And so we are going to be to be coloring these spirited little snowmen from the Spirited Snowmen stamp set. We'll be making the ornament and the little snowmen on the ice skates. And we're going to be doing a technique called smooshing, and I'm going to bring this up closer so you guys can see. But we'll be doing smooshing to make this kind of marbled, kind of icy look in the background with some glossy paper. So let's go ahead and make the card first. I'm going to show you this technique. It's called smooshing with alcohol. Now, in your envelope, you have everything you need to make the card. You have your base, which is Pool Party. You have a piece of glossy paper. You have a piece for your snowman, the sentiment, a snowflake, and a little faceted gem for the center of the snowflake, and then this piece of smoky slate for the background. We're going to move all of these pieces out of the way because we're going to be spraying this with alcohol and it can get a little bit messy. So the technique is you're going to need a surface. This is a laminated placemat, so it is not going to absorb any liquid. But you need either a silicone mat or a baking sheet or something that's not going to absorb any of the liquid that you can color on and then spray with alcohol. So I'm using a laminated mat. This actually works really well for this technique. And what you're going to do is fill a Stampin' Spritzer or any kind of spray water bottle. It doesn't have to be a Stampin' Spritzer, but you're going to fill a water bottle or Stampin' Spritzer with an alcohol, a rubbing alcohol, and it really doesn't matter. I think mine's like an 80% alcohol, but you want to make sure you have one of these, and you're going to take your darkest Pool Party. So you have light and dark. Make sure it's the dark Pool Party, and you're actually just going to color. I have a little gunk here. You're actually going to color directly on wherever it is you're using as your mat. You're just going to put the color directly on here and make it nice and put a nice amount on there. You want a lot. Okay? And it's kind of hard to see. But this is going to be my snowman's icy background, okay? Now that you've got your Pool Party ink on here, make sure, again, like I said, you're using the dark. You're going to spray it and get it really wet with an alcohol spray. So I'm just spraying it until it's really wet, okay? And then you're going to take your piece of glossy cardstock and you're going to use the glossy side. The shiny side is going to go down into the alcohol. And this is the smooshing effect. So you're just pushing it into the alcohol, and you're going to start getting this marbled look with the ink. It's going to start spreading around. And this is why you call it smooshing. So we're just picking up ink around. And this is alcohol, so it does dry fairly quick. But if you have a heat gun, you can use that to make it dry even quicker. I'm grabbing a baby wipe to clean the surface because I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do a second layer to make it darker. And what you can do is you can just keep adding layers until it's as dark as you want it to be. So I'm going to put in another layer of this marker. I think my marker is dying. I go through a lot of Pool Party. Yeah, it's not really coloring. Let me see if my light does any better. Light you can hardly see. Let's try my fine tip. I think my Pool Party might be out, which is not good. Let me grab a slip of paper here. Oh, there we go. It's like it's only coming out of the end. Okay. So let me add another layer of the blue. Okay. And then I'm going to smoosh again after I spray. So you can keep doing this layer after layer until you've gotten the consistency that you want. And see, you're going to get it darker every time. And it's just going to look like snow. Okay, and you'll just keep spreading it around, getting the color everywhere. So you get the idea. So you're making this layer of snow until you get it as dark as you want, and it does dry and it lightens up as it dries. I'm gonna try one more layer just to get it nice and dark. I like it dark. Okay, one more time. I'm gonna try and add color on this side since it's a little bit lighter on that side. There we go. And maybe in the corner a little bit. Okay. So you'll just keep smushing until you get the ice. Now, like I said, you can use the heat gun to dry it and let it dry, or the alcohol does evaporate fairly quickly. And so you don't have to wait too long for it to dry. While it is drying, I'm going to set this aside and we're going to go ahead and stamp the snowman. You should have, I want this to be dry, you should have a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and it will be where we stamp our snowman. We're using the Spirited Little Ice Skating Snowman. He's one of my favorites. And we're going to ink it up with Memento Black ink. Remember, Memento Black ink is the only ink you want to use with your blends, okay? So make sure that you don't use any other kind of ink with it because it will run, okay? So there's that, and then I'm going to clean off my stamp real quick. Oops. Okay. And then we get to color him. Yay, my favorite part. All right, to color the snowman, I used Poppy Parade, Shaded Spruce, and the Smoky Slate. Now, I will tell you that his nose is a carrot, right? So it needs to be orange. So fortunately, last month you guys had like Cajun Craze. So if you don't have an orange like the pumpkin pie blends yet, you can use Cajun Crazed, which is what I used. And it looks just fine for his little carrot nose. So this is another option if you don't have pumpkin pie, which was not one of the blends this month, okay? And so because we're not using brown this month, we're using Smoky Slate, we're also going to color his limbs in light Smoky Slate. So we've got his little branches, which I think are cute in gray. And then don't forget about his little stick legs. And you can also do his blades of his skates, okay? And then in the darker Smoky Slate, I'm going to do his buttons because he's got little buttons that go down his belly here. Isn't that cute? He's so cute. Okay, so for his hat, I did a combination of the Poppy Parade and the Shaded Spruce. So I always use the fine tip on this fine detail because the brush tip, it's a little bit harder to get the accurate coloring and stay in the lines. And I didn't color any of his little snowballs here at the end of his hat, but I'm going to do that this time. And I'm going to alternate. I'm going to do red, then green, then white, then red, then green, then white. Red, then green, then white. So every third one is going to be Poppy Parade. And you can do whatever pattern you want. You do not have to follow what I do. But he is just too cute. All right, and then the Shaded Spruce. Apparently don't know my colors today. Bear with me, it's been a long day at work. Okay, so he's got that, and then we're gonna do his little scarf the same way. I just love these blends. They are so much fun to color with, and they make you look like a professional. So that is, you know, the perk to having these fun blends colors. All right, so we've got his cute little scarf. I'll bring this up close so you guys can see what we've done so far. Not too much yet. Now we're going to do his little skates. I forgot what with the Poppy Parade. I'm going to start with light, and I'm actually going to shade his skates. So I'll show you that here. We're going to always start with the light. Just do a coat of light around and all through his shoe. Okay, And then we can go back with the dark, and this is why I love the dark blends, is you can do borders around the skate. So maybe there, maybe up here, you know, maybe a little bit there. And then you can go back over with the light and blend those edges. Just blend those edges. Okay, so it looks really, really natural. Now, if you do not have a color corrector yet, believe me when I tell you that you're going to need one. I already made a boo-boo here and I need my color corrector. Now, when you use a color corrector, think of it as a pusher. It's going to push away the color. So wherever you put this, it's going to move the color away from where you've put this liquid. So it doesn't technically erase it, it moves it, okay? So think of that as where you want that color to go. That's where you're going to push, and it's going to take maybe 1 or 2 coats of the color corrector to actually get the color to go away, okay? So be patient with it and wait between coats because it does get really wet, and then you know, apply it again and keep pushing that color if you need to. All right, now I've got my light pool party and I'm gonna start shading my snowman. So I'm gonna shade him where I think, you know, there might be some shadow. So around his face, maybe under his chin, definitely under the scarf, right? The scarf is going to create a shadow. You know, depending on where the sun is at in the sky, it might be in his back and down under his belly. So, you know, he's got that second roll right here, this little love roll right here. You're definitely gonna have shade under that second level. And then again, through his back, and then around the bottom here. So you're kind of outlining it a little bit, maybe around his buttons. Again, use the stamp to show you where the shadow is going to be, okay? Maybe under his arm here. Okay, now, you can be done here, but if you have a color corrector, you can go back over these blues and you can blend these edges by just running the color corrector around where you colored. It will blend and lighten those edges of where you shaded, okay? So there you go, you've got this cute little shaded snowman and you have your piece of glossy paper. Mine is completely dry already. I'm gonna do some stamping on my on my piece of glossy paper. I have the snowflake stamp that's in the Spirited Snowman. So here it is right there. And I'm gonna take the Pool Party ink and I'm just going to stamp a couple snowflakes into the background. So you can see on my original, I have some snowflakes here in the background. So we're just gonna do that. Oh, we're gonna not stamp on hair. And we're going to just stamp around our little, I call it a skating rink, but it could be a blizzard or a winter wonderland. Okay, so you're just gonna do some snowflakes. Maybe I want a little bit more over here, maybe up here. Okay, so you've got your snowflakes. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stamp Winter Cheer on our little tag. So we have a piece of cardstock in your envelope, and you're gonna get your Winter Cheer stamp, and you're going to use Memento Black ink. And you're going to stamp, make sure you stamp to the right, because we're going to do a dovetail on the left-hand side. So I've got Winter Cheer there, and cover this ink before I make a mess. Okay, and then you're going to take your pair of snips, and you're going to cut up the middle to the sentiment, and then you're going to cut from an angle to that point that you did, like so. Okay, so there you have your dovetail. And it's not perfect, but neither am I, so that's all right. And if you want it to be more perfect than this, you can actually just use the triple banner punch if you have it. All right, so now what I'm doing is I'm going to actually shade around the sentiment. I'm using Light Pool Party, and I'm just brushing the brush tip across the edges just to give it a shaded edge, a border. And the light is really light, so you can be generous with it. If you want it to be darker, you can use the darker Pool Party, which I think in the first card I used the dark Pool Party, and you can see it's a lot more defined than on this one. But I think I like the light. Okay, so there we go. And you just get it good and shaded. It's just like sponging the edges, right? Okay, now we got to do some fussy cutting. So let's go ahead and fussy cut this snowman. Now that you've got your snowman cut out, we're just going to assemble this cute little card. So all you need is some runner. You're going to apply runner to the back of your smoky slate cardstock. Glue that down to your pool party cardstock. Woo. Make sure it's centered before it sticks down, especially if you're using fast fuse. Okay? And then you're going to do the same with your glossy cardstock. And somebody asked me last night if this was Stampin' Up! Glossy cardstock, and yes it is. It's in the annual catalog. Back in the coloring, well, I think it's called Paper Basics section. Oh dear. Well, I think that's how it's going. Went on a little crooked, but it was not going to let me pick it back up. Alright, I put my little sentiment on with dimensionals, so I just got 2 dimensionals here. And put that on right about here. And then we're going to put our little snowman on dimensionals. And put him. Now I like to think that he's on this skate, so I will put him kind of at an angle because he's skating around. And then I have my little snowflake here, and I need to put a little bit of liquid Tombow glue here on the back of my snowflake. It's kind of tough, so I just kind of dab it where I can. Okay. Put this down on your glossy paper. It's so pretty. And then I can peel the backing off my gem and put that in the center of my snowflake. And there you go. Such a beautiful little card and such a fun little technique with this alcohol smooshing. It makes for a really cool background, and you can do this in any color. You can mix colors. You can do all kinds of fun backgrounds with this. So that is project number 1. Now, project number 2 is this cute little ornament. And so you should have received inside of your ornament, you should have some pieces of paper, and yours is also going to be filled with the filling. So you're going to have a little filling surprise in here, so hopefully it doesn't make too much of a mess. You'll also have an envelope that has the ribbon and the baker's twine and things that you need to put this project together. First thing you can do is definitely cut off this little ornament tag. You don't need that. And you have this piece of cardstock that we're going to stamp our snowman on. And so we have our little snowman couple. I call them my love birds. My little love birds, but they're love snowmen. And I'm just going to stamp this in Memento black ink, and then we're going to color it, and then of course, you guessed it, we're going to fussy cut it out. Okay, so make sure it's nice and inked up. Now when you're stamping, make sure that you leave yourself as much room as possible on the bottom, and then we're going to need that because we're going to hot glue our snowman to the bottom of this cap. So make sure you give yourself some space down there because you're going to fold that down and use it as a little anchor. Okay, so we got our snowman stamped. Let me go ahead and clean off some of these stamps we use real quick so that they don't dry and ruin the stamp. They want to come off the block so easily that it makes it hard to scrub. And I have my snowflakes, and I have the winter cheer. Okay, so those are nice and clean, and now we can color our little snowman. We also need to stamp, and while I have the ink here next to me, I'm going to go ahead and do that. In Poppy Parade, I stamped the sentiment, Love Never Melts. So you can see here, I have the little sentiment here on this tag, Love Never Melts. So you have this piece of cardstock that's included in your kit, and I have the stamp set here on the block, and I'm just going to stamp, and I'm giving myself a little bit of room because I need room for a hole punch. Okay, so just kind of stamp in the center. Love Never Melts. Okay, and I'm going to clean that off because it's red, and it will definitely get everywhere. Okay, all right, let's close this up. All right, now the coloring time. So I love these two little lovebirds. In my first ornament here, I used the Smoky Slate to color his hat. And I did it in dark Smoky Slate, and I did several layers to get that darkness that I wanted. Okay, so it may take more than one round with the Smoky Slate, but eventually you will get the shade that you want. So I'm just going to color around and get that full, this is the dark Smoky Slate. You can start with the light if you wanted to get even more shading, but I'm going to go ahead and after I've done my first coat, I'm going to go back over where I want it to be darker. So underneath his hat here, maybe around the center. So we've got the brightness kind of right there in the corner. Definitely want it to be dark around the bottom here. Maybe around the top a little bit. And you're just going to keep going and do layers. Okay, until you've got the darkness that you want. So you'll just keep coloring him until you've got it. Now, I did her hat in red, so you start out with your light Poppy Parade. Always start with light, as I've mentioned before, because that gives you the opportunity to be able to shade and blend. If you go straight to the dark, then you won't have the ability to come back with your light, with your darker colors and blend. So I'm definitely going to do the heart in the light and go back and shade. I don't know if you can see in my ornament, I used a lighter heart or lighter Poppy Parade, and you can see some of it's shining, like it's maybe a little bit reflecting. Same thing with her scarf. As my snowmen roll around, I'm going to move that to the side. So I'm just going to give this some color. Again, I'm using that light because I want to go back over and shade. And you definitely want to use the fine tip for this detail because the brush tip will be too much. And then for his hat, I did the red as well here on the center of his hat and in some of his scarf. So I'm going to do 2 lines of red on his scarf and 1 line of green in the center. Okay, so there we have our little red. Now we can go back over with our darker red and we can shade. So maybe we want to do darker back here and on the side. Maybe we want to be dark over here. Maybe around the holly. And then we definitely want to be dark in her scarf back here. And then maybe down the back of her scarf where the sun's not shining. Okay. And I love that shading effect because let's do the heart as well. Because it adds dimension. It's no longer flat. Once you've added shading, it's no longer flat. Okay, and I'm going to go back over with the light in the fine tip, and I'm just going to kind of blend those edges so it's not so obvious that there's this big line of separation in color. Okay, maybe a little bit in the heart. All right, let's go ahead. Oh, let's do our berries as well. Here's our little berries. Okay, now we can go over with our shaded spruce. I'm going to go ahead and go with the dark because there's not a lot of space or detail for me to shade in the green. Not a lot is being green on this one. So I'm doing the band in her hat. I'm going to do the line on his scarf. And then the end of her little scarf here as well. And then I need to do the holly, but I don't want to do it in the dark. I want to do it in the lighter shaded spruce, so it stands out from the ribbon a little bit. Okay, so we've got those guys. And then again, I'm going to be using the Smoky Slate for their twig arms. And if you have a bronze or a crumb cake, you are more than welcome to color that color. And then again, if you have pumpkin pie, you can do his little nose, but if you don't and you have Cajun Craze from last month, you can use Cajun Craze. All right, time to fussy cut this guy out, or these guys, these little lovebirds. So we're going to actually leave this section here at the bottom, and then we're going to cut around the rest of him. Guys, I actually realized that we did not shade our snowmen with the pool party. So we're going to have to do that. So I am using the light pool party, and I'm just shading where I would think that there'd be a shadow. Again, you know, under his belly here, down the back of him, and definitely around the bottom. Just some natural shading there. And then, as well for her, you know, maybe around the side, definitely under the scarf, back behind the scarf here, behind the bow, and then underneath her hat, okay? And then underneath her right here. And then, if you feel that you've gone overboard with the shading, you can go back with the corrector and just blend those edges. And the reason I say use the corrector is because, well, you're using pool party on white, so there's not really much option. You can't really blend with any other color. Okay, so now that they're all colored, you're going to fold your base down, okay, like so. Make sure that it fits inside of your cap, so make sure you didn't cut it too wide. And then you're going to hot glue this piece to the cap. Now, I have hot glue that's already ready to go, and maybe is going to come out, perhaps. Okay, so I'm going to have a little pool there, and I'm going to stick my snowman down in it. And I kind of want them in the center, so I'm just kind of wiggling it around till I've got them where I want. And just making sure it's nice and secure. Okay? So once you've got that glued down and it's got to cool down a little bit, here's the second thing that you're going to want to do. I used, and I'll take this apart so you guys can see, I used embossing powder, or embossing paste, the glitter embossing paste as snow for my base. This is covering the hot glue and the little anchor that I created. Now, if you don't have embossing paste, there are other options. You can glue some cotton balls down to make it look like a bottom of snow. You can glue some of the filler down so that it covers a layer of the hot glue so you can't see the bottom. So there are other options. You'll just have to be a little bit more creative. But the embossing paste from Stampin' Up!, the glitter embossing paste, looks just like snow. And so if you have some of this, definitely use it because it is so great for making it look like they're in a mound of snow. So I have these tools here. Stampin' Up! Has these palette knives. They're called, palette knives. They're in the annual catalog. And you're just going to scoop out some embossing paste. Now this stuff dries like really quick, and it will harden on your tools and other things. So make sure that when you use this, you clean your utensils off really quick and close the lid when you're all done. Okay, so I'm just going to be pushing this around to cover the bottom so it looks like snow. And this will take a little bit of time to dry, so I would suggest leaving the ornament open and not putting this inside and closing it until this is completely dry, because once you close it and seal it, it actually will not dry because it dries by air contact. Okay, so it will forever be wet if you close it and it's not completely dry. And the heat gun does help with that. If you want to speed up the process, you can heat it with the tool, the heat gun, and it will dry it a little bit. Okay, so there they are in their little snow bank. And just scrape off the excess, put this back on. Make sure you seal up your embossing paste really well. I even keep it in its original bag to try and keep out as much air as possible, because I have actually had it dry inside of the tube itself, so just be really careful with that. So I'm cleaning my palette knife off with a baby wipe so that it doesn't dry on there. And while I set this aside to dry, let's go ahead and finish the rest of our project. So we have our label here, and you're going to need a hole punch to punch a little hole at the end here, and then some baker's twine that you're going to tie through it. And then for your scissors, again, we're going to do the little dovetail. You can either use the triple banner punch, or you can use my little quick trick here to get that little dovetail. And then you're going to use your baker's twine, string that through. Okay, and then what I did was I strung it through the little circle at the top of the ornament, and then I doubled up, just kind of like this one is, where you double up your thread and you tie a knot with both of them, like so. And then you determine how long you want your thread, your little thread here. I made mine a little bit longer this time, so it's hanging down the side, and then you're just going to trim off the excess on top. And these are not my ribbon scissors, so they're not sharp enough for that. There we go. Okay, so you have that, and then the other thing you're going to use is this beautiful pool party ribbon. I love this beautiful satin ribbon. Oh, this is shimmer ribbon, sorry, pool party shimmer ribbon. This is in the annual catalog. And we are just going to tie a pretty little bow. So I'm just tying a knot, and then doing my bunny ear, looping it around, and pulling it through. Okay, so now we've got this pretty bow and our little tag right here. I'm just gonna pull that tight and adjust. Because this is a pretty thick ribbon, you have to kind of play with it, get it where you want, pull it tight. And then I'm gonna use my actual ribbon scissors this time and just cut at an angle to get our little ribbon. And then you have your hook to hang it on your tree, and then you'll fill it with your filler, which should already be in there for you, and you'll close it up when it's dry, and you have this beautiful little ornament. Isn't that cute? And you can hang it on the tree, or you can give it as a gift, or give it to your grandbaby, as someone is going to do. So these cute little snow globes. So I hope you had fun playing with the Spirited Snowmen. They're super fun to color with these new blends. And I know that the more you color with these, the more you're going to just shade everything. Everything's going to have a shadow, a shading, and your projects are just going to look so fabulous. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me. I can't wait to show you what's coming up next month. And enjoy those blends. Keep coloring. Bye.